What a bizarre weekend of Championship football we have had. We've had a few upsets, we've had a game abandoned, we've still got 2 games to come as well. Coming up later today, we've got Bristol City against Oxford, then tomorrow we've got Millwall playing Watford. But for the purposes of this video, we'll be discussing all of the other 10 matches that have taken place in the Championship over the weekend so far, and I'd love to get your guys' thoughts on them in the comments down below. Loads of talking points to dive into today. Let's not mess about and let's jump in. So on Friday night, we saw Middlesbrough maintaining their almost flawless start to this Championship season with a 2-1 triumph over West Brom. I thought this one would be a bit of a tight match. I just edged it to Borough in my predictions, and in the end, that's what happened. Now, to be fair to West Brom, I thought they got in some really good areas during this game, but as has been the case in a few of their matches so far this season, just looked a little bit toothless at the key points in matches. Obviously, we're now 6 games into this Championship season, and West Brom have only scored more than 1 goal in 1 game so far, and that was away at Wrexham. With all that being said, playing this Middlesbrough side at the moment is no easy feat. Currently, it's only my team, Preston North End, who have managed to take points away from them. 16 points after 6 matches is an absolutely incredible start to the season. I believe statistically, it's the best start that Borough have ever made to a Championship campaign, and got off to a bit of a flyer in this match. It was a goal scored from the long throw-in, wasn't it? Luke Ayling gets that flick on, and then Strelic is in there, right place, right time, to put Borough 1-0 in front. But the real quality comes from the second goal. As soon as a bit of pace was injected into that Borough squad, they looked absolutely unstoppable in that passage of play. It was a brilliant flick from Hayden Hackney as well, and an absolutely superb finish that just bends in around the far post. And at 2-0 down, it felt like game over then, really. Obviously, West Brom do get a consolation goal late on, but Borough, I think, deserved winners in the end. Rob Edwards, I think, deserves immense credit for how quickly he's been able to get his ideas across to this side, playing the sort of football that he's managed to get out of this league previously with, obviously, at Luton. And given how slow a lot of the other promotion challenges have started, or the sides that we thought would be up there at the start of the season, Borough have got a real edge on all those teams at the moment, and even if they just perform like a middling Championship side between now and the end of the season, the points they pick up, they'll probably still be good enough for a place in the top 6. So lots of encouragement for Borough. West Brom, like I say, got into some really good areas. It was just when that bit of quality was needed, they just didn't quite have it in this game. After that, to Birmingham up against Swansea. Birmingham returning to winning ways with a late dramatic winner from Lyndon Dykes coming in the 94th minute. Now, I do feel quite bad for Swansea, who I thought were at least good enough for a point in this game, especially considering it looks like they were robbed of a goal in the first half when Zan Vopotnik had the ball in the back of the net. Now, on the replay that I've seen of it, it was obviously ruled out for offside. It's difficult to definitively say whether or not he was on or not, because there's not a clear angle from being in line with Vopotnik and the last defender, but from the angle I've seen of it, he looks like he keeps himself just onside, but the linesman flags and then Swansea don't get their deserved goal, because it was quite a bright start from the visitors here. Second half, Birmingham are the side that have the momentum, but as has been the case in a lot of their Championship matches so far this season, they looked a little bit toothless at times. There were moments and chances they had. Vigouroux obviously made quite a few saves in this one. Kyogo especially had an absolutely glorious chance when he came on, timed his run brilliantly to beat the offside trap. His movement is absolutely elite, but then he just fumbles it with the finish. I think that he's still someone who I've got faith in that will come good eventually, because I think that his movement's too sharp for him not to score goals at this level, but his finishing has been pretty under par so far this season. But it's a quite unlikely winner in the end. Lyndon Dykes coming on late on. It's a cross from the right-hand side from Patrick Roberts, a fellow second-half substitute, and then Dykes gets his header net to sink Swansea. So goal-scoring-wise, still a bit concerned about Birmingham long term, because I think we all anticipated, Birmingham fans included in this, them to be a bit more goal heavy with all the creative options they've got in that squad and just the quality of strikers they've got in that team at the moment as well. It's not quite clicked for them in that regard, but a win and a clean sheet can never be sniffed at, and it has to be said as well, Swansea, generally speaking, have been really good this season at limiting the opposition to quite few chances, so scoring against them anyway was always going to be tough. So feel bad for Swansea because of that goal that was ruled out, but you can't beat a last-minute winner, can you? We had Leicester against Coventry, surprisingly finishing as a goalless draw. I was anticipating quite a few goals in this one, as were quite a few of you guys in the comments down below. I think I had this one predicted to finish as a 2-2 draw. Called it right with the draw in the end, but not anywhere close to getting the scoreline correct. I think ultimately, it probably will be Coventry, the happier of the two sides, with a point in the end. I did think that Leicester shaded it with the chances. That's seen by the stats here. XG superior, 2 big chances to Cov's none. It really was Mavididi probably with the best chance of the game in the second half, but Carl Rushworth was level to that. Surprising in the end that it did finish goalless with all this attacking quality on the pitch, but it's two sides who, to me, I think both will probably be up there come the end of the season, who maybe didn't want to give that much away to the opposition. Despite this being Coventry's second goalless draw of the season, they're still the top scorers in the league, and I'm sure they will bounce back with a few goals next time. So points to be shared there. Don't think that's the worst result in the world for either side. And we saw QPR beating Stoke and ending their unbeaten run with a Harvey Vale second half winner. It was a cracking strike from Vale as well, and he's probably one of the more underrated players in this QPR forward line, isn't he? Thought he had a decent game against Wrexham. I think he created 5 chances in that game. He's someone who probably doesn't get spoken about as often as some of the other attacking options that QPR have. But yeah, a real quality finish, and in the end, that was the difference between the two sides in this one. I do think in terms of the general flow of play, QPR were the better team in this one and were deserved of all 3 points. Victor Johansson called into action on multiple occasions. 6 saves he made throughout this one. As the game went on, I was sort of thinking, is this going to be another one of those games where Stoke weren't at their best, but Johansson manages to dig them out, grind out a goalless draw? I think that would have been the perfect outcome from Stoke, given that they weren't at 100%. But when QPR have so many options in the final third that can hurt you from all different angles, you know, you've got Vale, Burrell, Kone, Saito, Mbele, Smith as options on the bench, a few of the other lads who are injured at the moment, Chair and Poku as well. One of the most encouraging things from a QPR perspective from this game, though, was probably how comfortable they looked defensively, because I think that while most of us anticipate that QPR will score quite a few goals this season, it's that defensive structure which was the thing that they needed to work on, obviously coming off the back of that game when they shipped 7 against Coventry, and it feels like they've really hammered that home since then. Top win for QPR. For Stoke, a bit under par this one, but 12 points on the board from their first 6 games, 2 points per game. That's not to be sniffed at, and I think that given their brilliant start to the season, you can just put this one down maybe as a bit of a bad day at the office, and I'm sure they'll bounce back. Then into the Saturday 3 PM kickoffs, and this is where we really get into the controversy, because Blackburn were beating Ipswich 1-0 until the game was abandoned with about 10 minutes to go. Now, as of recording, it's not been confirmed by the EFL, Blackburn or Ipswich what's going to happen with this fixture, whether the whole fixture will have to be replayed again, just the last 10 minutes. It's a bit of uncharted territory, really. I mean, the game itself feels a little bit irrelevant if it's going to have to be replayed in its entirety, but I have to say that if that's the case, it really feels like Ipswich have got away with one here, because it was another really under par away performance. I thought that they'd really turned a corner after putting 5 goals past Sheff United last time at home, but all 3 of their away performances so far this season have been pretty underwhelming. Opening day of the season away at Birmingham, they got back into that thanks to a last-minute penalty, but weren't great. Away at Preston, they were pretty poor, and this game against Blackburn, they were second best for the majority of it as well. It was a Todd Cantwell penalty, the difference between the two sides. Worth taking into consideration, Ipswich were down to 10 men as well when Jacob Greaves was obviously shown that red card. Blackburn gave a good account of themselves in this one, but could it all be for nothing? And how controversial would it be if this game is going to have to be replayed and Ipswich go ahead and win it? There was that hilarious clip from just before the game got abandoned of the Ipswich defence trying to play it around the back, and the ball is just not moving. It's being really held up by the waterlogged pitch. It was really throwing it down at Blackburn in that second half, wasn't it? But for the first 60-65 minutes, the pitch was very much playable, and Blackburn were definitely the better side during that period. Towards the end of the game, I do have sympathy for all the fans there and the EFL officials that had to make that decision, because the pitch was completely unplayable by that point just because of how much water had actually come down. So we'll probably know a bit more about the outcome of this game a bit later on, maybe, but for the time being, it's all up in the air what's going to happen with that. Thankfully, this game at Pride Park was allowed to finish. We had Preston beating Derby away from home, and oh my god, as a North End fan, this feels so good. This is the first time we've won away from home on a Saturday since March 2024. It's felt like an absolute eternity, but what a performance this was from North End. Definitely felt like a bit of a game of two halves. It was the first half where North End were totally in control of this one, causing Derby all sorts of problems, and I could not believe how passive Derby looked in that first half. There was no intent to get at Preston, try and force us into mistakes. They were completely sitting off us and just allowing us to go at them wave after wave. In the end, it was Alfie Devine with a bit of quality, which opened this game up. Absolutely beautiful strike from outside the box, rifling it in to that top corner, and what a pickup he's been on loan from Spurs. It was him and Dobbin combining for that opening goal, and honestly, North End had decent chances to go 2-0 up in this game. Second half, the momentum did shift slightly. It was Derby coming on to North End, and we definitely had to be resolute defensively. I thought that they got better and looked more threatening with Adjiman on the pitch. He got a little bit unlucky not to hit the back of the net when he forced Dan Everson into a top save. But all things considered, really happy with that performance from North End. Defensively, looked really resolute. Going forward as well, we're looking to play upon the vulnerabilities of Derby. From a Derby perspective, really quite under par, and I feel like John Eustace probably will have to take a bit of flack for that performance because of how negatively he actually set them up for this game. Brilliant showing from North End though. Alfie Devine, he is the boy. We saw Hull picking up a big win against Southampton, beating them by 3-1. A lot to like about this performance from Hull. They picked their moments going forward and were absolutely clinical in the final third. A goal and an assist from Ollie McBurney. I think he's proven to be one of the best value buys in the Championship this summer. He's been absolutely brilliant leading the line as that figurehead for the Tigers, and from front to back, like I say, there was quite a lot to like about this performance. Another assist from Ryan Giles. He looks like he's getting back to those levels that he was showing previously from that original stint he had with Middlesbrough when he probably played his best football previously. He seems to be reinvigorated, like I say, playing with a lot more confidence. Joseph among the goals. Lundstrom took his goal really nicely as well, but for all the positives we can give for Hull, and I think they're absolutely deserving of that, Southampton, another really underwhelming performance, and that's despite absolutely dominating the ball, having 71% possession, but they couldn't translate that into many clear-cut chances, only accumulating an XG of over 1 despite having 14 shots. Armstrong took his goal really well at the end, but ultimately that was all for nothing, and we are at a bit of a point of the season now where I think rightly there is pressure mounting on Will Still. 6 points from 6 matches is a really poor return for the amount of quality in this Southampton squad. Looking at the league table right now, the Saints 19th at the moment. They could drop even lower than that if Watford win on Monday night against Millwall. 1 win in 6 is such a poor return, and that was on the first day of the season. A last gasp win as well against Wrexham, a Wrexham side who are still patching their side together. They've not strung together consistent performances in any back-to-back game week so far this season. Thought they were pretty underwhelming against Pompey as well. There is absolutely no doubt in my mind that quality-wise, this is an 11 and a squad that should be fighting it out there, not just for the top 6, but for the top 2 in my opinion. Listen, we are still at a stage of the season where the table, as we can see here, is still fairly congested, and it would only take Southampton winning back-to-back matches and they fly up the table and are suddenly back in this promotion picture. But do I see them doing that anytime soon? Not with the way they're playing at the moment. And this one felt like a bad loss for Norwich, didn't it? Losing 3-2 at home to Wrexham. I did have this one predicted as a 3-2, but I predicted Norwich to be the victors of this one. Now, Norwich got into the lead going into half-time, 1-0 up, and at that point you are fearing a little bit maybe for Phil Parkinson. I think there was a bit of pressure on him coming into this fixture. There's been a bit of paper talk about some of the other managers available right now that Wrexham could be looking at after they themselves have had a bit of a stuttering start to this season. But for everything you can say about Wrexham and how leaky they've looked defensively this season, something that they've always consistently had throughout the leagues, whether that's been in the National League, League 2, League 1 or this season in the Championship, is fight back sort of spirit, and with the quality in this 11, there's always goals to be had here. Josh Windass really turned it on in the second half. He scored a brace. The ball right down the right hand side causing all sorts of problems, getting 2 assists for himself. But how criminal was it, the gaps that Norwich left in their defence and how much space they actually afforded Wrexham in the box to take advantage. The pick of the goals was definitely Windass's second, an absolutely lovely strike into that far corner from the sort of edge of the box, wasn't it? I think rightly so, there was quite a bit of hype around Norwich at the start of the season because they'd signed a lot of defenders and had, gone quite hard in trying to address their problems from last season, bringing in a good coach like Liam Manning as well. But too many of those problems from last season have resurfaced on too many occasions so far this season, and right now I just can't see a world where Norwich make it into the top 6, which would have been their aim at the start of the season. For Phil Parkinson, that's an absolutely massive win, which I think does substantially ease the pressure on him for the time being. Still have those question marks over Wrexham defensively. It's another game where they've shipped 2 goals, but going forward, when you've got players like Windass to turn it on like that, you're always capable of staying in matches. And who saw this one coming? Sheffield Wednesday getting their first win of the season away at Portsmouth. Now, maybe we should have read into Wednesday's away performances a little bit more, because I think they have looked much more competitive in their away games so far than they have at Hillsborough. Maybe because there's a bit of a toxic atmosphere around Hillsborough and that bleeds onto the pitch a little bit. But going back to the opening day away at Leicester, really good performance from Wednesday. That second half away at Wrexham, they were absolutely outstanding. And this game, they stood up to the test of Pompey. Now, Portsmouth fans will point to this maybe not being completely their full strength 11, obviously. First choice goalkeepers out at the moment, and there's also no Josh Murphy for this match. But with all that being said, if Pompey want to kick on from where they finished last season, with full respect to Sheffield Wednesday, this was absolutely a match that they were going to be targeting all 3 points in. But maybe a scenario where they've overlooked Wednesday a little bit and taken them a little bit lightly in this one. But Wednesday have always seemed to be a bit of a bogey side for Portsmouth. I think the last time Portsmouth beat Sheffield Wednesday, you're going back to like 2002 or something. I remember last year they won at Fratton Park as well, didn't they? It was Michael Smith who scored that absolute worldie. Well, another worldie in this game. It was a terrific free kick from Barry Bannon to give Wednesday the lead in this game. And then you're thinking, second half, Portsmouth are going to come out and absolutely go all guns blazing at them. Well, the momentum was sort of taken away when Wednesday get their second goal on the 50-minute mark. Credit to this backline as well for how they dealt with the Portsmouth pressure towards the end, because that towards, the last sort of 20-25 minutes of this game, it seemed to be one-way traffic. But a tremendous result for Sheffield Wednesday here, who have shown they've got a bit about them this season. I think there will be games naturally that just get away from them a little bit, like we've seen for them at a couple of their home matches, games against like Stoke and Bristol City at home especially. But games like this, they can prove themselves to be really difficult to break down. Max Lowe with another excellent defensive performance. And when you've got the quality of someone like a Barry Bannon to score a free kick like that, you've always got a chance. But quite disappointed with Portsmouth there, it has to be said. And then to round off the Saturday games, we had more misery being compiled on Sheffield United, with Charlton hitting them with the ultimate sucker punch, winning this one in the last minute. I think most of us thought there'd be a bit of a bounce around Sheff United with Wilder coming back in, but running into more of the same problems. And to be honest, playing a Nathan Jones Charlton side probably wasn't the ideal sort of fixture that the Blades wanted to go into in this sort of game, because Charlton were always going to keep this one very tight, very low scoring, and a lot of the problems that Sheff United have run into continually this season reared their head in this game as well. It seemed to be a game of relatively few chances. The only big chance ended up being scored by Charlton, but both teams having an XG of lower than 1 in this one. Sheff United having a bit more of the ball, but not really being able to do that much with it. It feels like the problems that have manifested at that club over the summer and throughout this season so far, with the dreadful start under Sellers, this is going to take more fixing, maybe, than a few people initially anticipated, thinking that Wilder's going to come back in, wave a magic wand, and they're going to fly up the league. There does seem to be a real lack of confidence with quite a few of these key players. One that I pick out is Cooper. Like, Charlton take their goal well at the end. It's a nice cutback for Olafe, but he doesn't get the sweetest of connections on it. And Michael Cooper last season, there's no questions about it. He saves that at the end, in my opinion, but it just goes through him sort of, and I think there's been a few occasions this season where that's happened. But full credit to Charlton, because I think the build-up to this game was all about Sheff United with Wilder returning, and I think that almost suits them a little bit to play that underdog tag going into most games like they have done so far this season. But another clean sheet for them, a game where they've really not given away a lot to the opposition and they've proven themselves to be really hard to play against. Didn't create a plethora of chances themselves, but going away to a place like Bramall Lane, walking away with a 1-0 victory, that's not to be sniffed at whatsoever. So really good result for Charlton there, who have moved up the league a few places. For Sheff United, more concerns, I think, have come out of that one. But there we have it, guys. That will wrap it up for today's video. Thank you very much for tuning in. Make sure to leave all your thoughts on this weekend's action in the comments down below. Obviously, we've still got 2 games to come as well. We've got today Oxford, Bristol City playing, and tomorrow Millwall against Watford. But apart from that will wrap it up for today's video, guys. Thank you very much for tuning in. Drop a like if you enjoyed, and I'll see you all in the next one.